It was 11:51 at night. I was staring at a spreadsheet, deep in a forensic audit, when my phone lit up. It was a text from my mother. Jennifer, 14 words. Your father and I spoke with Jessica. We've agreed you are no longer part of this family. I read it once, twice, before I could even process the shock. A second notification popped up on the lock screen. Jessica hearted the message. That wasn't just a text. That was a verdict. I didn't cry. Crying is for problems that can be solved with emotion. This was an audit. I didn't text back why I didn't call my mother and beg. My profession, forensic accounting, is the study of finding truth in numbers, not in words. People lie. Spreadsheets don't. The clock on my laptop clicked over to 12 a.m. I closed the audit for my client. I opened a different file. One I'd kept for 10 years, hidden in a password-protected folder. My hand was steady. This kind of anger wasn't loud or hot. It was clinical. It was precise. They said I was no longer part of the family. I was just finally agreeing to their terms. So I started to balance the books. 12:01 a.m. I logged into my phone carrier account. The 5-person unlimited family plan, the one I paid for, I selected Jessica's name. I selected her husband, Chris's name. Click, remove from plan, service to be discontinued at the end of the billing cycle. 12:02 a.m. The premium streaming bundle, all the movies, all the shows, all streaming on 6 different devices across their house, all in my name. Click, cancel subscription. 12:03 a.m. The credit card, the one I'd co-signed for Jessica just for emergencies, the one she'd maxed out with online shopping and spa days, I logged into the bank. Click, freeze card. Click, report card lost, dividido por stolen. I didn't do it out of rage. I did it as an accountant closing a defunct account. A bad debt being written off. For 10 years, I had been the silent investor in their version of family. I was the responsible one, the one who made it. I was Emily, the fixer, the human emergency fund. I was the one who learned to read Grown Up Panic at 8 years old. I learned that my value wasn't in being a kid, it was in being useful. My sister, Jessica, was 2 years younger. In our house, she wasn't useful. She was bright. She was the free spirit, the artist, which over the years became a sliding scale of euphemisms. Free spirit became, it's just a rough patch, which became, she's just finding herself, which became, Chris is a bad influence, which became, they just need a little help to get on their feet. Their feet never seemed to touch the ground. Because my wallet was always there, acting as the floor, I was the one who covered textbooks, carte repère, the weird deductible on their dental plan, the deposit on their last 3 apartments. My help wasn't help, it was an expectation. My success wasn't my own, it was a resource for the collective. But tonight, the collective had voted and I was out. The text message wasn't an attack, it was in its own cruel way. A release, it was permission to finally stop. So I kept clicking. I went back to my spreadsheet, to that file. It wasn't just a list of expenses. It was a decade of my life, quantified. It was time to review the receipts. You have to understand, this wasn't just help. Help is what you give in an emergency. This was funding. This was a long-term systematic subsidy for a life. They refused to build themselves. My ledger was proof. I scrolled down the list, past the hundreds of entries for groceries, phone bills, and car insurance. I stopped at the big ones. Line item, $60,000. That was for Jessica's art history degree, the one she abandoned in her 3rd year to find her passion. Her passion, apparently, was expensive brunch and zero accountability. Another line, $25,000 seed money for her husband Chris's Web3 consulting startup, a company that, as far as I could tell, produced nothing but a fancy website, a lot of buzzwords, and a significant financial loss. A loss that I, of course, was expected to absorb. And then the one that really stung, a wire transfer from 3 years ago, the payment for the overdue property taxes on my parents' house, the house they almost lost to foreclosure because they had quietly, foolishly, emptied their retirement savings to, you guessed it, cover another one of Jessica's emergencies. I used to think they were just bad with money. I used to tell myself I was just being a good daughter, a good sister, that I was keeping the peace. But staring at the cold, hard numbers at 1 a.m, the truth finally clicked into place. This wasn't a family, it was a system. It's a classic toxic family structure, the kind I read about in psychology articles, but never applied to myself. Jessica was the golden child. She was the one with all the potential, the one who was bright and creative and sensitive. She was never taught about consequences, only about her own destiny. In her mind, she deserved all of this. She was manifesting, and me, I was the caretaker child, the scapegoat, the one who was boring, responsible, predictable, Emily, the one who was good with numbers. My success, my career as a forensic accountant, wasn't seen as my achievement. It was seen as our collective obligation. My income wasn't a gift I could choose to share. It was a resource they were entitled to, a utility like water or electricity. I wasn't their daughter. I was their bank. And my entire worth, my entire purpose in this family was tied to the zeros in my bank account and my willingness to transfer them. My mother's text, it wasn't an emotional rejection. It was a business notification. It was the system panicking because the asset me was no longer performing as expected. I highlighted the $60,000 for tuition. I highlighted the $25,000 for the failed startup. I wasn't just balancing my books. I was auditing a decade of my life, and for the first time, I was seeing just how deep the fraud really went. I woke up at 7 a.m., not to my alarm, but to the buzz of my phone vibrating itself across the nightstand. A digitalt som. The quiet audit I performed at midnight had clearly hit its mark. There were 19 missed calls and a cascade of text messages. The first was from Jessica, my sister, at 8:15 a.m. Seriously. Emily, you're going to be this dramatic over a text. Mom was just emotional. Turn my phone back on. I have clients to call a minute later. And my streaming account, real mature. Then came the one from my mother. Jennifer, at 8:30 a.m., Emily, you need to call us immediately. Your father and I are extremely disappointed. You have created an absolute mess. Your father is very upset about what you've done. I read the words, what I've done, not what they did. Not the betrayal, not the 11:51 p.m. text message casting me out. The mess wasn't the problem. The mess was the consequence finally arriving at the right address. They weren't horrified by their actions. They were horrified that, for the first time, I wasn't silently absorbing the cost. I didn't reply. I got up and made coffee. I watched the timestamps on their messages turn from delivered to read. And I just sat. I knew the pattern. When private manipulation fails, the next step is public shaming. By 9 a.m., my aunt texted me. Are you okay? I just saw your mom's post. I opened Facebook, and there it was. My mother, Jennifer, to her 427 friends. It's so sad when some children forget who raised them. We gave them everything. And this is the thanks we get. The comments were already rolling in. You're a wonderful mom. Jennifer, thinking of you, they'll realize what they lost one day. I stared at that passive-aggressive masterpiece, and the last flickering ember of the old me, the fixer, the caretaker, went cold. For 10 years, I had told myself I was keeping the peace. I believed that sending the money, absorbing the insults, and quietly fixing their emergencies was the price I had to pay for a quiet life. I thought I was the firefighter. Looking at that Facebook post, I finally understood the truth. I wasn't the firefighter. I was the gasoline, my compliance, my silence, my endless wire transfers. That wasn't help. It was enabling, it was the high-octane fuel that allowed this toxic, dysfunctional engine to keep running for a decade. My money didn't buy peace. It bought their comfort in my silence. It funded the chaos. It gave them the soft, comfortable landing they needed to continue being reckless. Entitled and cruel, all while knowing I would be there to sweep up the wreckage. The fire wasn't new. By cutting them off, I had just finally stopped pouring gasoline on it. And now, for the first time, they were feeling the heat. The text kept coming. Chris, my brother-in-law, sent one. You'll be hearing from our lawyer. I almost laughed. Our lawyer, I thought, with what money? My money. I sipped my coffee. The Facebook post was their move. They thought they were shaming me into submission. They thought I would crumble. They didn't realize they had just given me all the justification I needed for my next move. This was no longer about balancing a spreadsheet. This was about shutting the whole fraudulent operation down. That Facebook post, that pathetic attempt at public gaslighting, was the end. It broke the last thin wire of family obligation. This was no longer a personal dispute. This wasn't a family drama. This was a professional matter. I picked up my phone, scrolled past the 19 angry texts from Jessica and my parents, and called Sarah. Sarah isn't a friend. She's my lawyer. She's the one who structured my business. And more importantly, she's the one who helped me set up my personal trusts. She's even sharper, even more clinical with numbers and contracts than I am. When she answered, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't say, my mom was mean to me. I said, Sarah, I have a situation. I'm looking at a hostile occupation of a property held in my trust. She was all business. Go on. So I laid it out, not as a daughter, but as a client. I gave her the facts, the numbers, the timeline. The asset is the A-frame house at Lake Arrowhead. I said, pulling up the file, purchase price, $650,000. I bought it 2 years ago for my parents' retirement. It is owned, free and clear, by the EMR Irrevocable Trust. I am the sole trustee. My parents, Mark and Jennifer, are listed as lifetime beneficiaries with right of occupancy. Good. You don't glad. She said, 6 months ago, I continued my sister, Jessica, and her husband, Christopher, asked to stay for a few weeks to get on their feet. They never left. Now, they've taken over the main house. They've moved my parents, Mark and Jennifer, into the small, uninsulated room above the garage. Sarah was silent for a beat. They're squatters? Emily, that's how I'm classifying them. I said, this morning, the family has formally severed ties. They've made it clear they believe they have a right to the property. Chris posted something about our family lake house. They need to be removed. They have zero legal standing. Sarah said, her voice sharp. The trust document is clear. You, as truste, have the sole power to manage the property. Their feelings don't mean a thing in court. This isn't a family home. It's a legal asset that they are illegally occupying. I felt a strange cold relief. The relief of a surgeon handing off a complex case to a specialist. This was out of my hands now, and in hers. So what's the first move, I asked. We start clean. We'll serve them a formal 30-day notice to vacate. She said, certified mail, requires a signature. It's the first step in a legal eviction. It moves this out of the realm of text messages and Facebook posts and into a court filing. We'll give them 30 days to get out before we file the eviction suit. Do it. I said, no hesitation. All right. I'll draft the notice based on the trust documents I have on file. I'll send it out by noon today. Just let me pull up the county assessor's page for the parcel, just to double check the legal description. I could hear her typing. I waited, ready to hang up, ready to move on. Okay, got it. Parcel number, legal owner, EMR Trust. She murmured, that's odd. What's odd? Wait, Sarah said, her voice changing. Hold on, Emily, I'm not just on the assessor's page. I'm on the state's business register. I just found something. What do you mean? You found something? My voice was flat. This was a deviation from the plan, and I don't like deviations. Sarah's voice was tense. Chris, your brother-in-law, he registered a new LLC with the state 3 days ago. I felt a flash of irritation. So what, another Web3 consultancy that I'm supposed to fund until it crashes? No, Emily, Sarah said, her voice sharp. The address, the registered primary address of his new LLC. It's the A-frame. It's the lake house I stopped. He can't do that. It gets worse. Sarah said, that's not even the main thing. The reason I'm calling is that I received a voicemail this morning on my main office line from a man named David Miller. He's an investor. Chris has been pitching. Apparently, Chris gave him my law firm's number for due diligence. David left me a message thinking I was your business partner or part of the LLC. My blood went cold. What? What did it say? I'm forwarding you the audio file right now. Check your email. I clicked refresh. The email popped up. I put my phone on speaker, my hand shaking just slightly, and hit play on the attachment. A man's voice, professional and polite, filled my office. Hi, Sarah. David Miller here. Just doing my due diligence before wiring the initial funds to Mr. Christopher's new venture. He's listed the $650,000 A-frame property at Lake Arrowhead as a primary corporate asset for the LLC. He's claiming it's his seed equity. I just need to verify that the title is clear and that he's authorized to leverage it. The recording ended. I just stared at my monitor. The cursor blinked. This wasn't just entitlement. This wasn't just my spoiled sister being selfish. This was fraud. This was a federal crime. Sarah was waiting for me to scream or cry or break down, but I didn't. Something inside me just clicked. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even betrayal. It was the cold, quiet click of a deadbolt sliding into place. My whole life, I'd been the fixer, the caretaker. I'd spent a decade trying to fix them, to repair the damage, to heal the family. I thought if I just paid one more bill or absorbed one more insult or balanced one more budget, I could fix this. The recording was my answer. You can't fix people who are actively, professionally, trying to defraud you. That desire, the deep, aching need to repair my broken family, it just died. It evaporated. I was done. I picked the phone back up. My voice was steady. Sarah, I said, Emily, God, I'm so sorry. Don't be, I said, you just gave me clarity. We're changing the plan. What do you mean? Forget the 30-day notice. That's for family. That's for tenants. Chris is not a tenant. He is a criminal. I took a breath. I want you to file for an immediate emergency eviction based on illegal activity and fraud. I want a restraining order, keeping him off the property. And that voicemail, yes, I want you to forward that audio file along with the LLC registration and the trust documents to the county district attorney's office. Inform them that their seed equity is a stolen asset. Emily, Sarah said, voice quiet, that's escalating to a criminal level. Are you sure? They sent me a text at 11:51 p.m. telling me I wasn't family. They were right. I am not their bank. I am not their fixer. I am not their scapegoat. As of this moment, I said, I am a material witness to wire fraud. File it. I said, file it all. It took 2 weeks, 2 weeks of silence. The texts, the calls, the Facebook posts, they all stopped as if a plug had been pulled. The silence was heavier, colder than the noise had been. It was the sound of legal machinery grinding, of certified letters being delivered and signed for. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole, and my stomach didn't drop. It just tightened. It was my mother, Jennifer. She didn't look like my mother. She looked like a stranger in my mother's clothes. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hair was a mess, and she was visibly trembling. She looked small. I opened the door. She didn't wait for an invitation. She practically fell into my entryway, her hands fluttering. Emily, Emily, thank God. You have to stop this. I just stood there, my hand on the doorknob. Stop what? Jennifer, I asked. I didn't call her mom. The word felt foreign in my mouth. All of this, she waved her hands as if swatting at ghosts. The letters, the lawyers, Chris, Emily, Chris is facing criminal charges. Her voice cracked, and the performance began. The tears, which had been waiting in the wings, now streamed down her face. They served them an eviction. They're accusing him of fraud. He could go to jail. She lunged forward and grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight. Manic, you don't understand. You're destroying your sister's life. You're destroying this family. How could you do this? I looked at her and I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just observation. I was an auditor watching the final desperate attempt to cook the books before the feds walked in. This wasn't a mother begging for her child. This was the system's chief enabler, sent in for one last-ditch manipulation. Do something, Emily. She sobbed, do something for your sister. I looked at her hand on my arm. I didn't pull away. I just waited. I already did. I said quietly, her head snapped up, her tears momentarily stopping, confusion flashing in her eyes. I gently removed her hand from my arm and turned, walking not to my phone, not to my checkbook, but to my desk. I picked up 2 folded documents from my boring armor file. I walked back and held them out to her. She stared at them, confused. What is this? This, I said, tapping the first one, is a copy of the official eviction notice filed with the county court. It gives them 48 hours to vacate the property before the sheriff removes them. Her face went pale. And this, I said, tapping the second, thicker document, is a printed copy of my lawyer's formal statement to the district attorney's office. It includes the LLC filing, the audio from the investor, and a full accounting of the fraudulent claims made against the asset, my asset. I pushed the papers into her hand. You wanted me to do something for Jessica. This is it. It's called accountability. It's the one thing I never gave her. It's my last gift. She stared at the papers as if they were on fire. She looked back up at me, her eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen before. The manipulation was gone, replaced by raw panic. But you can't, she whispered. We're family. Your family. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who had sent the text, you're the one who told me I'm not. I said, at 11:51 at night, you put it in writing. I'm just finally believing you. She started to sob again. A different sound this time. A sound of actual loss. Emily, please, don't. Goodbye. Jennifer, I said, and I closed the door, not a slam, just a quiet, solid click. The sound of a file being closed, the sound of an audit, finally complete. The eviction was executed by the sheriff 2 days later. The criminal case moved forward. Everything after that was just paperwork. The A-frame on the lake, the one I had bought for them to retire in, was put on the market. It sold in less than a week. The funds were wired directly back to my trust. The asset was liquidated. The connection severed. Chris, faced with the audio recording and the LLC filing, took up that deal. Wire fraud. He avoided prison time, but got 5 years of probation and a restitution order that would follow him for the rest of his life. Jessica, my sister, faced her own kind of judgment. Without my money to cushion them, without the house to leverage, she and Chris had to move in with my parents. The 4 of them, my mother, my father, Jessica. And Chris left my parents' old house and moved into a small 2-bedroom rental apartment across town. The downsize was, I heard, brutal. Isera mi disk, my apartment kiet. The sun was setting, casting a long shadow across my keyboard. I opened my laptop one last time. Family, ledger, XLSX. I opened the file, 10 years of my life, all there in neat rows and columns. I scrolled to the bottom to the final cell I had programmed total. The number staring back at me was staggering. It was the price of my silence, the cost of my compliance. I stared at that final number for a long, long time. Then I highlighted the entire spreadsheet, every date, every payment, every note, and I hit the delete key. The cells vanished. The total turned to 0. The balance was finally Clear, I closed the file without saving. That night, for the first time in more than a decade, I slept all the way through until morning. No 11:51 p.m. text, no guilt, no noisy, just the clean, quiet peace of a zero balance.